Hello and welcome. We are now live into the let's click on here invite. Hello and welcome to this newest edition of the Nickospective podcast. And I would like to welcome you. If you're just tuning in, let me just silence that. That's my AirDroid notifications. But welcome to the Nickospective podcast. I haven't done anything like this in a while, but I'd like to we're going to bring in a special guest to talk about anything and everything Nickelodeon. And this person should be joining me in a little bit. I met this person through actually the Old School Lane, if you follow that channel. And hello, this guest should be on here now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Thank you very much for joining me. Uh, Followers of this person may recognize you as the end, but I would like to welcome you on Nick Nagel, or is it Nagel? RG or a soft G?
It's actually Nick Nagel. I know I got a lot of people that say Nagel, but it's a hard G.
All right. So anyway, thank you very much for being on. You are my first guest, and I'd like to welcome you to the Nickospective podcast. And because this is live, that means you out there listening can ask questions or provide comments, or I can even, if you want, you can leave a comment in the chat and I can invite you to actually participate in our on air voice chat if that suits your fancy. But before we go any further, because this is an open forum, I just want to get this out of the way first. This is an open forum, which means we must respect everybody's opinion. Everybody is entitled to their own opinion, and there might be some things that Nick or I might say that you may disagree with, and that's completely fine. We're just expressing our feelings, but the one thing we can't do is let this get out of control. And so, if in the event that you or I say something, or there's a little bit heated conversation in the comments or what have you, uh, I, as host or moderator, will of course step in and try to bring everybody back together, rein everybody back in, trying to calm down the entire situation and continue carry the conversation in a positive format. It's not to say that we don't want everybody to be heard, but we are a community of Nick fans, and it is my firm belief and my philosophy that we should do this in a respectful manner. We should treat everybody with respect and create a positive experience. I'm sure, Nick, you would agree with, you would back up every word I said there, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's get going. And why don't we start with you? And this is going to be more of an informal chat instead of a formal interview. But for those of you who may not know who you are, just please provide some background about yourself and how you got involved with Nickelodeon. Particularly, when did you discover the network? What were your earliest, fondest moments of watching Nick? And essentially, generally, how did you become a fan?
Well, it's sort of a long story, actually. My first ever memory of Nickelodeon came from about 2003, where my mom put on Nickelodeon for me for the first time, and the only show I was allowed to watch at the time was SpongeBob. But then,
SpongeBob.
yeah, then about 5 years later, my mom was dating this one guy, and me and my sister and that guy's two kids would always sit down and watch Nickelodeon every day. And my love for the network has grown since, basically.
Yep. So, what was that like? Go back into the experience you mentioned. Your the friend or the kids or the one. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
My mom's friend.
Yes.
Yeah. See, every day, whenever I was at my mom's friend's house, Me, my sister, and my mom's friends, two daughters, would always sit down and watch a ton of Nickelodeon shows. Like we practically
Mm,
watch it all day.
wow. And was that like an escape for you? Did you enjoy the show? What shows would you watch together?
Oh,
No,
we would watch pretty much everything. Of course, SpongeBob, but we would also watch stuff like Fairly Odd Parents and iCarly and True Jackson VP and Penguins of Madagascar and just a whole bunch of other stuff.
wow, that's pretty amazing. I was not a fan of things like True Jackson VP, although afterwards, when I found out about it, it sounded like a good show. And the Penguins of Madagascar, because I only watched the movie or one of the movies. I wasn't big a fan of the Madagascar franchise. And then,
Yeah, and to tell you the truth, True Jackson VP, that show is kind of boring, but I will give him credit. They had some very cool guest stars, including Tom Kenny.
yep, the voice of SpongeBob, who I hear
Mm-hmm.
now, who I hear now is getting ready to go back and voice an old character of his for an upcoming TV movie.
Ooh, yay!
Do you know who I'm talking about or not?
No, I don't.
Did you hear about the Rocco's Modern Life TV movie where
Oh yeah,
they,
that's right, Heifer! I'm so excited.
yes, that should be good. Even though I watched Rocco's Modern Life back in the 90s, and that will kind of get me into how I started watching Nickelodeon. But to wrap up my point, I'm watching episodes of Rocco's Modern Life now, and I feel as though they got away with a lot of dirty stuff.
Yeah,
But they
that's why the
wouldn't.
show's so amazing.
Yes, they get because it has a lot of adult humor in it that I'm sure by now. Well, when kids were watching it, I'm sure it went over their heads. But now, watching it, I'm starting to understand that's very interesting how you put that dirty joke in there. And then SpongeBob, you do know that some of the most of the Rocco's Modern Life creative and production team went on to do SpongeBob. And SpongeBob had some subtle adult humor in it, but mostly was, I think it was calmed down from the level that Rocco did.
Yeah, to some extent, I guess, but they still had some dirty jokes.
Yes, the one example I can always think of is I forget that episode's name, but when SpongeBob was watching TV and then Gary came in, and then SpongeBob abruptly changed the channel and said, "Oh, I was just watching the sports channel," or something like that. Do you remember that episode when I'm talking about?
The name escapes me now, but that joke is pretty darn funny.
Yes, the episode name I believe is called "Your Shoes Untied." Look it up.
Your shoes untied.
Your shoes untied. Look it up when you have a chance. Now, if you would just excuse me one moment, we're going to pause while I send out the links to this chat because we only have one person watching. I am going to try and promote this on my social media handles. So while you're doing that, I'm going to ask you another question.
Sure.
What are so? What were your favorite, most favorite, least favorite shows, or or any memories other than the ones that you described that stick out for you? What so? In a nutshell, why don't we start with your opinions on the shows first?
So, do you want to know my opinions on the shows, like as of now or as of back then?
Back then and then now.
Okay, so back then, the only shows that I really cared for were SpongeBob, Fairly Odd Parents, and iCarly. The other shows ranged from mad to pretty bad.
The other ones were, and could you give me an example of something or that you felt as though lost its touch or wasn't as good to you?
Um, I'm trying to think here. I never really cared for Fanboy and Chum Chum. I still hate that show today, actually.
It's interesting because I hear other people, other Nick fans, saying that, including Patricia from Old School Lane. Shout out to her. Fanboy and Chum Chum, Breadwinners, all of these other strange cartoons. I keep hearing brought up over and over and over again. But personally, I never watched those shows, so I technically don't have an opinion on any of those shows. But from what I hear, uh, for example, Patricia say they're very terrible. Uh, they must be.
Yeah, they're stupid and strange overall. They're just so horrible. Don't ever give them a chance.
All right, which brings me to this next question. How would you judge a good show versus a bad show? What is your judgment? What are your judgment standards, if you will, when watching? It could be a Nick show or any show or a movie. What are your standards of judgment, please?
Okay, so a story has to be well written. It has to have likable and relatable characters, and it has to have a bunch of either funny jokes or good plot twists, and it has to be relatable. And relatable characters.
Okay, so yes, the story has to be real, authentic, down to earth, something that the audience can relate to, as opposed to this nonsensical, what we see as probably stupid stuff that makes you, as the viewer, think, why would the writers ever decide to put that kind of stupid stuff in there? What went
Yeah.
through the writers' minds and the producers' minds to think that's something that the audience would want to watch on television? I mean, going back to the 90s stuff, some of the old shows like Rugrats, Doug, Clarissa Explains It All that, Keenan and Kel. What else can I think of? Maybe even Rocket Power. I still consider that to be a good show.
What about Hey
Those,
Arnold?
Hey Arnold, yes, those shows had some very good stories, relatable stories, into the funny stuff and stuff that I wanted to watch.
Mm-hmm.
The writers there were very good. And if you look at Dan Schneider, for example, I remember watching all that and Keenan and Kel and the Amanda Show. And when those shows were on the air, I thought this would go on forever, and this is what we would be entertained with week by week. But then we realize that these shows don't last forever; they get canceled, and then we end up going into something like iCarly and Victorious. I watch the shows now. I think some of the episodes are good. They have a lot of premises to them, along with Sam and Cat. Henry Danger, and I'm a big fan of Game Shakers. I don't know if you knew that, but personally, in my opinion, Game Shakers I think is a pretty good show, mostly because it has Kel Mitchell of Keenan and Kel in it, but also because I'm a game designer. I design my own games, and I think I know what the process is like of developing a game, getting it out, tested in front of the players, and it takes a lot of work to put the game together and get it out there for players to play. But regardless of that, I want to quickly go into, because I forgot to share my side of the story, how I started being a fan of Nickelodeon. I think it was after we moved when I was around 5 or 6 from one small town in upstate New York to another, Rochester to Syracuse. And I think my first memories of watching Nick was actually Nick Jr. When we went to my grandparents' house, or one of my grandparents' house. I think the first show that I watched was Nick Jr. or Nick Jr. Eureka's Castle
Eureka's
and
Castle, yeah.
and Gullah Gullah Island. Do you remember those at all?
Of course I do. They're such fantastic preschool shows.
Yeah, but then we started watching Rugrats and Doug, and eventually all that, and Keenan and Kel, and a little bit of Ah Real Monsters. And then I remember seeing an episode of Wild and Crazy Kids. and Double Dare and Figure It Out, and even the spin-offs to the classic Chupo shows like the Wild Thornberries and Rocket Power, as I mentioned, and then I was a big fan of the Amanda Show. In the two
Yeah, nice.
Cat Dog, you could go on and on. In the 2000s, I did watch a little bit. I did watch the first two seasons of As Told by Ginger, along with the Fairly Odd Parents, SpongeBob. The first SpongeBob episode I watched was, I think it was called Bubble Stand.
Yeah,
Bubble Stand and Ripped Pants.
funny episode.
Yes, and then I I watched a few episodes of Invader Zim, but I was not really into it.
Yeah, me either. It's okay and it's fine and it's all right. It's just that it's not the best thing ever made.
It isn't. Why do you defend your argument? Why do you say that, please?
Well, there's not really a lot of funny moments on the show. It's more of a darker show, which I love dark stuff. It's just that the characters really aren't as well developed as other, dark shows.
Could you give me one example, please? Because I
Like Pretty Little Liars, love that show.
so what you're saying is Pretty Little Liars has more developed characters, and again, I don't really watch PLL, but maybe I should. I've seen some of the previews back in the day, but I'm starting to get an idea of what kind of TV that you're into. Rich stories that have a lot of development into them, stories that can touch your heart and grab and make you kneel from the edge, put you at the edge of your seat,
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. And
Yeah,
so,
make me laugh out loud.
yep, exactly. Comedy is always something to go for. And
Mm-hmm.
so, anyway, I just want to quickly get back to my spiel. I did watch the first two seasons, or at least the first season of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and
Yes.
I found that was some of that was pretty good. But after a while, I just stopped. Mainly because by around the mid 2000s, I was 2004, 2005. I was going into high school at the time, and so I felt as though I was kind of growing old, quote unquote. I was getting quote unquote too old for Nickelodeon, and I started watching other networks. I went to CBS or no, I didn't watch MTV, but definitely CBS. I Thanks to my other grandmother, I became a big soap opera fan, and I still am to this day. I like to watch things like The Young and the Restless and The Bold and the Beautiful, and I'm also a big game show fan. And
Nice.
but so I think the last Nickelodeon show that I watched was Zoe 101.
We're not talking about
I'm
that.
sorry. It's on playing on my TV right now. On silent. I have the mute down, but I should have told you that I have Zoe 101 playing in the background on my TV right now. Anyway,
Uh,
let's get back to you. I have another question. One could say that Nickelodeon and its culture may represent the anti Disney. Do you agree with this perspective? And in your personal opinion, how do you think the network stands versus its competition, such as the Disney Channel or Cartoon Network or things like that?
well, this might be a little off topic here, but I think the Nickelodeon was more creative in terms of their shows and stuff like that. Like they had both live action and animated. Like Disney Channel had mostly live action, and Cartoon Network had mostly animated. With Nickelodeon, you had all types of shows and all genres of shows.
Right. Whereas you say Disney Channel wasn't that diverse, or
Yeah,
which is interesting because in the early 2000s, my sisters and I we started watching Disney Channel and we watched things like The Proud Family, Lizzie McGuire, and Kim Possible, even Stevens. And even
yeah,
though,
good shows.
even yes, they were. but they were not as funny as Nickelodeon. Or they didn't have the gold. In my opinion, they didn't really have the golden touch.
Right.
I mean, we look at things like Rugrats or Hey Arnold, as you mentioned, or even all that Keenan and Kel, Drake and Josh. I mean, if you, the more you think about it, certain shows went and made a name for them. They stood out. For example, if you remember the Journey of Alan Strange,
Yeah, I wasn't too crazy about that one.
no, and I know many people aren't, but that was an that was a story about an alien trying to live an average, trying to live a human life. But
Yeah.
even now, take Game Shakers for instance. I mean, the two main characters of that show are two young girls who are involved in a tech type or gaming company running their own gaming business. And I think even Kel said in an interview that this is a first for Nickelodeon, setting the example for girls and young women to step out and be and do things like run a business empire. And
Yeah,
also,
and even though I don't like Game Shakers, I think it still has a good message, like you said.
yes, it does. Unfortunately, it is canceled.
Ooh,
Uh,
dear.
it is canceled along with Nikki, Ricky, Dicky, and Dawn,
Yes.
and as we
Anyone
speak,
else?
well, and as we speak tonight is they're going to do the last four episodes of the Thundermans.
The Fundament is over? Yes!
Yeah, I have a feeling that you didn't really like that show.
No, I don't like a lot of our Nickelodeon shows, actually. There have been a few, like Wonder Quest and Loud House, but for the most part, no, not really.
I see, and that's just a difference of opinion. I started watching Nicky, Ricky, Dicky, and Dawn, the Thundermans, and some episodes were good, others were not. What
Yeah.
I mean, once again, it all goes back onto what our judgment standards are, and really uh, what each show means to me. For example, looking at modern Nick again, if going back into the nostalgia factor, the only reason why I watch Game Shakers is because Cal is in it.
Yeah. And even though Kel is good in that, you can still watch him on stuff like Keenan and Kel or Glipburger. It's still 10 times better.
That is true. You do make a good argument because they don't show Keenan and Kel anymore on the Nick Splat. They used to, but now I'm
Oh,
able to go on to other websites and
oh nice.
pull up classic
Yeah.
episodes of Keenan and Kel and all that that you don't that you could just watch over and over and over again, and you don't get tired of them. What's
Right,
diff-
because Keenan and Kel is a funny show.
Yes, and so is all that. But the problem
Oh,
is
yeah.
one thing that I don't like about the availability of all that now is you can't really find all the episodes, or you can't really find a whole bunch of all that episodes online now.
Well, that's because they have problems with the music and stuff like that. Like, the music is copyrighted.
Well, that's true, and they don't want to infringe on the rights.
Right.
You can see small snippets, and there are some episodes of all that which I can find on YouTube, but I just wish there was a way to see more episodes of all that. Uh,
Yeah, definitely.
which asks me another question: were you a big fan of the original six seasons, or What's your take on uh, the new the new cast or the season 7 through 10 with the revival, the relaunch era?
Well, I don't like it as much as the original 6 seasons, but it's a lot better than most TV reboots that come out nowadays.
That is true. That is 100% true. I mean, take a look at things like Victorious or Sam and Cat. Even though I'm a big Ariana Grande supporter, I love her music, and I'm glad to hear what she's doing now, and I think she's funny. There were just some nonsensical things, and And I look back and say, at the time, what have you done, Dan Schneider? I mean, I never would have thought that back when all that and the Amanda Show came out, that we would get to a level where your shows, what you've come up with, have stooped to this low level of comedy, quote unquote, that it, nobody's going to enjoy watching. I mean, and I think that could apply to these other uh, kid and teen sitcoms and perhaps some cartoons that I feel as though what went wrong with Nickelodeon that nowadays it's lost its luster, and why, what happened in the executives in the creators minds that brought the network to the state in which we are now. And take your time to give a long answer to this, because I'm gonna, A, I value your opinion, and B, I'm also trying to get the word out on social media. So I need to borrow some time.
Okay. So, I think the reason that the network is less creative than what it used to be is because the new executives just care about money. They don't care about what people want to see. They just want to get their money so they can stay alive.
That's very interesting that you say that. I mean, now everything is money related. That's the main driving engine of a business, any business.
Yeah,
If you don't make money, then you sink. But you also
right, and exactly. And it's okay to have money to stay afloat. It's just that you got to think of other people too and what they want and need. So you got to think of the people and the money, not just one.
exactly, yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. You want to make sure that your network stays financially afloat. But if the kids don't care, or the audience, I know more than just kids watch it. Do you agree? Nowadays,
Oh yeah, I still watch it to this day.
yes, no, you have to keep in mind. No, you have to keep the programming suitable and something that the audience is going to watch, or else they're not going to pay. You know, there's an old business adage: the customer is always right. And
Mhm.
in this case, the customers are the viewing audience, and they're not going to pay if they're not going to pay for. I'm sorry, let me go back. If they don't like the content that you're putting out, they're not going to pay, but they're not going to pay for your service. But they don't directly
Right.
pay for Nickelodeon. It's the cable subscribers that, or it's the carriers, it's the service providers like Spectrum and Verizon that provide the service. But
Hmm.
let's say they're not going to pay for cable. But let's say if Nickelodeon continues to put out the garbage, my philosophy is the kids are not going to like it, and they're not going to pay for the cable service.
No, I don't
Um,
think they are at all. To bring up Journey Alan Strange again, actually, they actually tried doing that same show again, but they did it 10 times worse with Marvin Marvin.
well, and can you give me a little bit background? I didn't watch Marvin. So I
Marvin
don't.
Marvin is basically this sitcom about normal, well, not normal, excuse me, alien kid disguised as a normal kid on Earth, and he's basically trying to do normal kid things, except it's really annoying, and Lucas, what's his last name, never shuts up, and it's just so poorly written and so, everything about that show is terrible.
Well, I'm going to take your word for it. I mean, there has to be a good cartoon. There has to be a good animated series that, well, besides SpongeBob. But even though SpongeBob today is not what it used to be, but
Yeah, it's funny that you say that actually because even when I was a kid, I could realize the difference in quality between the new seasons and the old seasons. Like I constantly hated how SpongeBob and Patrick would always torture Squidward for no reason in the new seasons, but in the old seasons there was at least a reason if I already did that.
yes, exactly. The stories, and I've watched some new episodes of SpongeBob, but then I just had to turn the TV off because they just got into some. non-realistic situations, and they did all these types of things that I would not have expected on an earlier version. But I think that's also because the writers and the producers, including the creator Steven Hillenburg himself, they left the show at a certain point, and they brought in some new people that just flushed SpongeBob down the toilet. No one.
Well, the first movie is actually supposed to be the series finale, but then Nickelodeon, because their skunk bags want more episodes. And that's why I find funny, actually. When it comes to SpongeBob, they can treat that show like a god. When it comes to As Told by Ginger, they treat it like garbage.
I know, and I wonder why they decided to cancel or end. I wondered why they decided to cancel or end that. I mean, take a look at that cartoon. We
That
have
show's phenomenal.
we have relatable storylines, issues that
Good animation.
what did you say about the animation? I didn't
It
quite.
was good. It was actually watchable.
Yes, exactly. Issues that could relate to a teen audience that kind of would bring up real life discussion. I
Yeah,
mean,
even heartbreaking moments too, like that suicide episode. That was one of the best episodes in anything I've ever seen.
yes, I know. I think it was called Then She Was Gone.
Yeah, I think that's what it's called too.
One of my favorite episodes of As Told by Ginger that I was thinking about today. It was not the lice one. No, it was not the lice one. It was where Ginger and the they had the pool party. Remember the
Oh
pool?
yeah,
The
that
pool
one.
party? The pool
Oh, what did they do to
party.
Courtney?
Yes, and oh, wait a minute. No, it was the lice one. I like the lice one also,
Hmm.
particularly when Dodie was the PA announcer, and she was about to read the names of everybody that had lice, but then Ginger pulled the cord just before she was going to uh, announce Courtney's name. I don't. What did you think of? Did you see that episode, and what were your thoughts about?
Well, I have seen the entire series, and yes, I love that episode.
Hmm, that was. I mean, I don't know what Dodie's intent was, but to read off the name, to read Courtney Gripling's name over the PA system of somebody who has lice. I think one of her lines of dialogue was she would go down in Lucky Junior High history, but for what cost? For humiliation of one of her classmates?
I
I
guess.
don't know that. I don't really know if that was uh, ideal, or you would have suffered a lot of consequences later on. But I will tell you, one of my most favorite things about Ginger, the series, is the Camp Caprice TV, the Camp Caprice TV movie. That was one of my absolute favorite things to watch.
I'm gonna actually disagree with you upon that. There were some good things to say about that movie, like the Neil Patrick Harris cameo, but overall, I found that to be the weakest out of the four as told by Ginger TV movies. My favorite out of the four is the series finale, The Wedding Frame. It sucks how Nickelodeon never even aired it. Thank God you can watch it online.
Well, I didn't watch it when it was aired. Duh, obviously, because it didn't air on the network. But once I find it online, I'm gonna check it out. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you should. It's phenomenal.
I've heard Patricia once again. Shout out to Patricia from Old School Lane. I've heard her talk about it on the live streams, and every time she brings up as told by Ginger, you should check out her We're in Between series with Casey and Ashley from the Friday Night Nicktoons podcast. But
Very good podcast, everyone.
yes, but anyway, I'm sorry that I'm sorry that you feel that way about the summer of Camp Caprice, but that's
Oh
just your
no,
opinion.
it's not bad. It's just that it's not the best.
Well, true, and because I didn't watch The Wedding Frame, I have nothing else to judge it off of. So
Right.
uh, that's just my difference of opinion. But I will share one of the things that I did like about the Camp Caprice. It had a good story,
Hmm.
and I liked all the elements of the plot, and I thought it
Yeah.
was a very interesting. story to tell. The one thing I didn't get was what happened to the dogs, or
Yeah, and then there's Sasha. Oh my god, I cannot stand Sasha.
well, neither. Well, I have mixed feelings about him, and there was a previous up, or there was next episode, I think, where this happened a few episodes after. Ginger wanted to play in the marching band, and
Yeah, I think Ginger wanted to play in the marching band, yeah.
she played the extra grande triangle, and the only reason why she wanted to join the marching band was because they were having a competition at the school where Sasha went to, and then they find out that Sasha already has a boyfriend, and that plan was moot.
Yeah. And Sasha, what he did to Ginger in the second episode he was in, that was uncalled for. Ugh.
Yes, well, I'm gonna have to revisit that uh, again. Well, I want to move on. Before we move on to the final or to the next question, do you think Klasky Chupo had an empire in terms of Nick animation, or do you think other animation shows or other animation companies balanced it out? Uh,
Well, Klasky Csupo maybe in the early to mid 90s were dominating Nickelodeon, but then by the time like Hey Arnold and SpongeBob and stuff like that came around, then they slowly started dying out, and now they're practically non-existent.
no, because you don't see any Klasky Chupo shows playing
Well,
on.
they've done like a few things, like they made comic book in 2012, and they made like two web cartoons in 2016, but that's about it.
No, and I was saying on Nickelodeon.
Oh, on
Uh,
Nickelodeon. Yeah,
we
they're done with Nickelodeon.
we don't see any Klasky Chupo. And if you had to rank uh, your favorites from 1 to 5, starting with Rugrats or whatever, what do you think would be the top?
Okay, so As Told by Ginger is my favorite Klasky Csupo show because it is so perfect in every single way. It really is. And
Perfect.
then next would be Rugrats because it's the show that got Klasky Csupo, to become a household name.
Yeah,
And then number three, it would be Real Monsters. And then it
yeah.
would be Wild Thornberries because I don't really like that show, but it's not as bad as the last two, Rocket Power and All Grown Up.
I was going to ask you about your opinions on All Grown Up versus the original Rugrats series.
Oh, yeah. Well, All Grown Up isn't the worst Nicktoon in existence, but it's still far from what the original Rugrats was. Like, it wasn't as funny, it was just kind of weird and out of place, and some of the characters were kind of off.
Yep. Uh, I mean, I didn't watch the regular episodes. No, let me take it back. I only watched the first season, the first 2 seasons of All Grown Up. Then I started watching it, mostly only because I started to feel, quote unquote, I was getting too old for Nickelodeon. So I didn't catch the final seasons of All Grown Up. But I have to agree with you that the premise was good. I mean, the premise behind them wanting to create a show where the Rugrats were a little bit older, they're much mature, and they wanted to show the adventures of them now as teenagers or
But they did that
as
already in the 10th
preteens.
anniversary special.
Yes, you make a good argument. The all growed up with a D. That was that was a good one.
Yeah, that actually
Some,
was a good one.
and some of the earlier episodes in the series, but then they kind of, as you said, they kind of took away from what the original Rugrats was, and I really like the story behind what the original Rugrats tried to do, and
Hmm.
I just can't believe. But once again, we look at from a broad perspective. Every
Yeah.
show eventually is going to lose its luster, or every. That's what I've seen. Every show or every movie, even the movie franchise, there seems to come a point where the show seems to go in a completely different direction than what it was originally intended for, and that's sad.
Yeah, like SpongeBob, Fairly Odd Parents, Stampy Soapy World, The Simpsons, etc.
That's sad because I don't know what goes on in the minds of the creators of the people working on the show. What do you think happens?
Well, I think that they're running out of ideas, so they're trying new versions of old ideas just to see if they'll work.
Yep, that sounds just about right.
Or they'll do something that's even worse. They'll add in new unnecessary characters that nobody asked for, like Chloe from Fairly Odd Parents.
Yeah.
Can't stand her.
And I didn't watch any of the old. I'm sorry, I didn't see Chloe much. Once
Yeah, don't. She ain't
again,
worth your time.
actually, a few days ago, no, yesterday, I saw a really old episode. What is it? Father Time, a partnership.
Yeah,
Well,
that's a good episode.
yes, where Timmy melts his dad's trophy with heat vision and has to go back to the 1970s and try to fix it and try to keep his dad from winning that race. And you ever wonder why they don't reveal Timmy's mom and dad names? Why is why is that? I've been wondering why they kept
Well,
doing that running gag.
I guess it's just because they thought it was funny, or their first names could actually be Tina and Ike.
And what's your source? Where did you find that?
No, it's just a dirty joke.
Oh, if you just hold on for a moment, I'm gonna look something uh, up really quick that might give us an answer, or maybe not. Uh,
Or I can just tell you if you want me to save time.
sure, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so Tina Turner was this famous singer, and she was constantly abused by her husband Ike. And on the
Oh,
Fairly Odd Parents, Mr. and Mrs. Had the last name of Turner. So yeah,
hmm. Well, that could be. Uh, I don't have anything to back that up, but
yeah, it's not true. It's just that I'm guessing that's what their last first names could be.
yes. Well, hey, wait a minute. No, wait a minute. I just looked at a YouTube video where it says Timmy Turner's parents' names revealed.
Ooh,
And it says here that, wait, this may not be correct. It says here it's I something in Clements Turner. I
Clements Turner, huh?
I did not the first part, the first name was cut off. Oh, but then I find an article by Butch Hartman, and Butch Hartman reveals the names of Timmy Turner's parents.
That was a joke. Actually, he doesn't
Oh,
actually reveal them.
oh. But anyway, I guess it still has to be a it's still left to be a mystery.
Yeah, I guess. But thank God the show's canceled now because if it would have ran on for at least one more year, it would have been officially dead.
Wow. And Butch Hartman left Nickelodeon,
Yeah, he's on to
and,
bigger and better things.
and so did Dan Schneider. And we're not going to get into the circumstances surrounding that because some of it is bad news.
Yeah, plus, I don't really care for Dan Schneider that much. No offense to you. But, I still respect some of his work.
Yes, I mean, you mentioned off the top that you were an iCarly fan.
Yeah,
And
I do like The Amanda Show, Drake and Josh, all that, Keenan and Kel. And
yep,
to an extent, Victorious. Victorious had, like, some good moments.
yes, it did. And I want to go into look at like characters for a minute. Along, if we're talking about the Drake or Josh, uh, shout out. I'm sorry, rapid fire. Megan or Carly?
I guess Carly?
Why is and could you explain a little bit why is that?
Well, because she's so smart and independent, and she gives great advice, and she's always there for everybody, and I know, she doesn't do evil things like Megan.
Yep, exactly. My impressions of Carly is that I kind of liked Megan's, even though she was evil. I kind of liked her twist on the Carly. To me, just seems a little bit tamer.
Oh yeah.
Tame.
And Megan still had some good moments, of course. Like, what was that one episode, Ruby and Puff Pepper? That had me
Yep,
laughing on the floor.
yep, exactly. And then I'm just trying to think of another episode of Drake and Josh that I like a lot, where oh yes, they dyed their hair pink because they lost because they lost the bet.
Oh yeah. That was a good episode.
Another one I think of, Really Big Shrimp. That was the final TV series. And that was kind of the TV movie that was supposed to end the series, but then they played a few episodes after that that were out of order. And
Oh yeah, Nickelodeon does that all the time.
there was another episode where it was called the Battle of Panther, where they dressed
Oh
up as
yeah.
two characters from Galaxy Wars, and in a small scene, you see the future Freddie Benson, Nathan Kress,
Oh wow.
in one shot. I know it was difficult for me to see at first, but then I saw, and I'm just trying to think of other episodes. They're all good.
Yeah.
Um,
For the most part, there have been a few instances where I have gotten annoyed with Drake and Josh because they can be mean spirited sometimes. But other than that, it's a
yes,
good show.
yep. A lot of things also can be mean spirited. I've heard, take for example, that Jimmy Neutron. Jimmy is just. I know he's a creative and he has the mind of an Einstein, but some of his personality is just too mean.
Well, yeah, I actually have seen worse than that. I actually don't like Cat Dog because everybody on that show is a mean spirited jerk. Except for Dog, of course. He's cute.
Yes, of course. He's also played by Tom Kenny, who later went.
Hmm.
And in the episode called Kooky Prank, there was an episode of Cat Dog called Kooky Prank Day, and they got to a point where aliens were invading, and actually, if you hear one of the aliens, you hear SpongeBob's voice, or the beta version of what SpongeBob would have sounded like. Actually,
So you mean old SpongeBob?
yes.
That's what I find weird, actually. How come if it's Tom Kenny still doing the voice of SpongeBob, how come his voice got higher like that? That's bizarre.
Interesting. I don't know. And why do they keep saying my leg? What was
I don't
that?
know. My leg!
And another thing, SpongeBob has still not been able to pass his boating test. I saw an earlier episode where he went to Mrs. Puff's boating school and he took his driving test for the first time. And later episodes, I don't think I've seen an episode where SpongeBob finally passed the test and got his driver's license.
Well, there was sort of a joke on that with the episode No Free Rides, but yeah, there has been an actual episode. Maybe that could be the finale of the series. I don't know.
What about no free rides?
SpongeBob actually does kind of pass his test, but Mrs. Puff cheated him.
No, yes, I remember that. But getting a license for real, passing
Oh yeah, for real, that hasn't happened now.
that has not happened yet. And
No.
this show has been on the air for how many years now?
19.
19, and still there hasn't been any resolution to that plot hole where SpongeBob passes his driver's test legitimately and acquires his license legally.
Right. And since it is 19 years old, it's going to be turning 20 next year. And not to get off topic here, but I really hope that the 20th anniversary special is a lot better than Truth or Square.
Yes, I haven't seen Truth or Square.
It had like one good moment, which is the pink song. But other than that, everything about that special is awful. To the horrible celebrity cameos, to the new animation and scenes where they could just, have a montage of old animation,
Right.
and then just other random stupid stuff. And then the weird segment with Life in Bikini Bottom.
Oh, so and you say that was to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the show?
Yeah, if you can call it that even. So that's what I find funny actually. So Peggy Sue Clay, the founder of the classic Nickelodeon fan blog, shout out to
Right.
her. So she said that instead of celebrating Nickelodeon's 30th anniversary, their official 30th anniversary, they wasted all their money upon making this terrible special for SpongeBob. Sad, huh?
Wow. And they should be focusing on creating quality content and programming that their audience really wants to watch.
Yeah, exactly.
And
And they have
instead,
done it occasionally in this day and age, like Wonder Quest. I love that show, and The Loud House is a huge phenomenon. So why can't every
yeah.
show be like that?
Yes, I've watched a few episodes of The Loud House, and I enjoyed some of them.
Yeah, trying to think about what was that one episode where the older sister screams, "I don't have a boyfriend anymore."
Uh, the one I did like was when they did the crossover with Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Oh yeah, that
Um,
one
that was
was
really cool.
A+.
Speaking of new animation shows, you haven't have you haven't perchance watched The Adventures of Kid Danger, have you? Have you?
No, I'm not even gonna because it wasn't necessary at all. I didn't even like the original Henry Danger, so I'm not even gonna bother. Sorry.
Yes, well, I've watched a few of the episodes. Okay, now let's focus from the past to present. Now on to the future. What are your thoughts about the current state of the Nickelodeon network versus when we started watching in the 90s and the 2000s? And what are your impressions on how the network has evolved over the years?
Well, it's actually kind of an interesting story. Like, do you mind if I go back to their humble beginnings in the 70s?
Sure, yes.
Okay, so I find it interesting how they started out as this local channel in the late 70s and then early 80s, and then they grew to this worldwide phenomenon during the mid 80s and then all the
Yeah.
90s. Then they became this almost flawless channel in the early to mid 2000s, and now they're the mind-boggling idiots of today.
Wow. And I started watching Nickelodeon last year. Keep in mind, there was a point in my life where I felt quote unquote, and I'm using the air quotes again, but I truly believed it at the time. There was a point in my high school years when I just grew too old to watch Nickelodeon. I thought it was for just the younger kids. And I started watching as I said off the top of the hour, I started watching other things on TV. Like, for
Yeah,
example, soap operas, game shows. I'm a big game show fan.
me too.
Uh, other more adult appropriate things to watch on other networks. But then it wasn't until I started uh, getting back into the Nickelodeon spirit. I missed that old channel, and I that's how I found out Patricia from Old School Lane, and I really was interested to hear what she said about everything going on with the network, past and present, and that got me to turn the channel back on again, and that was around I want to say 3 years ago when they launched the Splat. Do you watch the Splat now and
Um,
now and again?
occasionally I ever get the chance. I wish they'd have more shows than what they have, though.
Exactly. I wanted to get to that. Currently, they're only running Hey Arnold, Rugrats, occasionally the Ren and Stimpy Show, Rocco's Modern Life. Uh, but they should add more shows definitely.
Yeah, make
They
it
should.
like a classic television network.
Yep, exactly. They used to have all that Keenan and Kel, but I think they should add some more live action. There was a time last summer when they celebrated the uh, the anniversary of the Adventures of Pete and Pete, where they just played Pete and Pete reruns.
That was awesome.
Yes, but I feel as though they should add more shows, definitely. And I
Yeah.
started watching the Splat and things like that.
Yeah.
And then,
So,
yes.
If you don't mind me by asking, sorry if I get off topic here. Do you have a favorite era of Nickelodeon by chance?
90s and early 2000, 90s and early 2000s.
That's my
Every
man.
everything from 1994 till about 2006, probably. Everything before iCarly.
Hmm.
Uh, and then did you also know the Double Dare's coming back?
Oh yeah, I heard about that. It's also nice to hear that Mark Summers is still going to have a hand in the show. He's not going to be the host or anything, but at least he'll still be involved.
Oh, I didn't know he was not going to be the host of the show any.
Yeah, the host is gonna be some sort of YouTuber. I forget what her name is though. But Mark Summers will still be involved in like Double Dare 2000. So yes.
That was not. I watched Double Dare 2000s, and
What's the point? In a Triple Dare challenge, even Sanjay and Craig made fun of that, which is actually the one thing I like about that show.
which is quite interesting. Once again, I didn't watch Sanjay and Craig. I want to also get your thoughts on the Jungle movie. Did you watch the Jungle movie? Uh,
Yes, and it was absolutely worth the long wait. I'm
yep,
really sad though that they
exactly.
had to change some things, but overall, for 15 years of not being out like that, it was nice to finally get the conclusion.
Exactly. I mean, before they even thought of putting it together, I was reading somewhere online on the Hey Arnold Wikia page that said there was a thing. I didn't even know there was this thing to bring uh, Hey Arnold back. I thought it
Yeah,
ended. I
I
thought it
actually
ended.
first heard about the Jungle movie because of Blame It on Horror. If you ever heard of him, he's also the man that introduced me to Patricia.
Oh, I haven't heard of him. Sorry,
Oh, it's okay.
but I'm glad it's on the air. What do you think about Arnold and Helga's relationship? Are you glad that they're finally an item, or do you wish that Arnold and Helga had different love interests?
Oh, I think the relationship works so well, and I'm so happy that Helga could finally just be herself around Arnold.
Yep, exactly. That was quite an interesting humanistic storyline that Craig Bartlett did. He
Yeah.
made he made Helga a bully, but Arnold didn't really understand the why uh, Helga was a bully, or at least her hidden agenda behind it, and that goes into a completely different struggle of why people sometimes are mean, and we kind of see that in the SETI arc a bit. I just started to put that together after watching recent episodes of iCarly. We kind of see a reflection of that in the relationship between Sam and Freddie.
Yeah, but that wasn't really something we should talk about.
No, well, we've been on the air for almost an hour, but and I'd love to talk about this some more. Uh, can you please promote, or do you have anything to promote, or on the side, your personal stuff?
Yeah, I actually have a couple videos you can check out on my own YouTube channel called The End. Hopefully there will be a link in the description below. And follow me on Twitter. That's about it.
What's your Twitter handle?
My Twitter, it's Nick Nagel 00, I believe.
Zero zero. And I wanted to get one last thing. I wanted to get into your
Sure.
handle, or your YouTube name is the end. Was that perhaps inspired by that that now defunct teen channel that used to spin off of Knockin', that had all those shows back in the 2000s?
Oh yeah, I was totally inspired by that. Teen Noggin Block.
I didn't really watch it. I watched some of it, but I didn't understand why they had that on there. What
Yeah,
was
I
the
was too
point?
young for the end back then, but I saw like the first preview every day when I was, watching Noggin and stuff like that. So that's how I know about the end.
Mm. When you're not watching Nick, what other networks are you follow are you following these days?
Well, I don't really watch much TV. I'm actually more of an online person because, in my opinion, TV really isn't worth it that much anymore.
Mm.
But some of the stuff I watch online are like creepy pastas and true horror stories. I love horror
Oh,
stuff. I'm an avid horror fan.
all right. And one more. I'm sorry, I said one last thing, but I now want to get into the legacy of Nickelodeon stars versus the Disney Channel.
Oh, okay.
I mean, for example, especially in the pop music scene, the Disney Channel gave or Disney gave us Selena Gomez, Demi Lovato, and Miley Cyrus, and all Nickelodeon has given us is Ariana Grande.
Well,
But
I guess Jamie Lynn Spears, if that counts.
Jamie Lynn's. But what is this? What has she done besides being
She sang a
Britney?
couple songs with Britney Spears, I think, and she had like one album.
Yes, but nowadays, well,
She's
Ariana.
dead.
I mean, compared to Ariana, she just came
Oh
out
yeah.
with a
Mm-mm.
new. She just came out with a new hit smash called "No Tears Left to Cry," which I think will ironically be this year's equivalent to Demi Lovato's "Cool for the Summer."
Oh, cool! I can't wait to hear it.
But anyway, and then we have Keenan on SNL. Uh,
Yeah, Keenan's really good.
yes, but I wish he could do something with Cal.
Oh yeah, I'd pay $1 million to see that.
And we're not going to get into the deep reasons behind Amanda's crazy face, but I,
Oh
I wish
yeah,
I wish
it's
she was
sad.
still I wish she was still on the air.
Well, she's gonna return to acting actually. She's gotten better and she graduated from designing school and she's planning upon returning to acting by September, apparently.
I heard about that. Any last words that you want to say before we sign off?
Thank you for having me on. Best of luck to you and hopefully we can do something together again sometime.
Yes, I'll always participate. I'll always try to participate in the live streams. Patricia just had one. You were part of
Yeah,
that too.
I was. That was like, what was it, 2 days ago?
Yes, for her birthday, and we played the Jackbox Party Pack. One of my favorite games that I like to play was Survive the Internet, and I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to play that. That's
Yeah, that's a good one. And
that's
Vibbage is the best.
yes, and remember we were on the back in November we were on that old school lane casual chats fifth anniversary episode together.
Oh yeah,
You
that's right.
remember
It
that?
was so cool being on the same podcast series as all these famous Nickelodeon stars.
Yep, exactly. And I have one more thing because I was a little bit confused with. Are you not to be personal, but I can't. Are you a guy or a girl? I couldn't really. I'm sorry.
I'm actually a guy. My voice is just kind of higher pitched.
That's what I thought. Your name, and I it wasn't not Nick. Usually guys spell their names Nick. When you see Nic, I usually think of Nicole instead of Nicholas. I'm
Yeah.
well.
I
Anyway,
just dropped the K when I was younger because it didn't make much sense to me.
yes. Well, thank you very much for being a part of this chat. Unfortunately, we didn't have any listeners asking questions or leaving a comment, but this will be archived, and once it's archived, I can post it around, and people who missed this show live can catch it later on their own time.
Oh, cool. Could I have a copy by chance?
Well, yes, you just go onto my YouTube channel. I'll send you the link, but you just go onto my YouTube channel, Jordan Hayes, and it should be up there.
Okay, cool.
Well, I'm going to go back to watch the Thundermans finale now, but thank you very much for being part of this, and we'll see you next time on
Oh,
the. I
yeah.
hope one of the things that I would like to try to do is get more guests. So if you have any more guest referrals, that would be great.
Hmm.
I think I want to get Patricia next time.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Try her Twitter though because she's kind of swamped right now in emails because of her move and stuff like that.
Yep, exactly. Well, have a good night and have a good Memorial Day. We can happy Memorial Day to you and your family.
Thanks. You as well.
And we're signing off now.